So, if you guys, well, yeah. Let's get somebody to do both acts. You got acts? Okay. So 4:18 through 20, just open up to that one first. And then chapter 5 is just like the last two verses, really, so that's not a big deal. Okay. I need somebody to do Jeremiah.
I got it.
You got Jeremiah? That's Jeremiah 20, verses 7 through 13.
Okay.
And then Judges.
I'll take it.
All right. Jeff's got Judges. And then that's basically like the first three verses and almost the last three verses. So, Aiden, you want to take Genesis? Okay. Abby, do you mind getting 2 Samuel? Okay. Is it? Oh, okay. Oh, I was like, is highlighted up here? Am I like... Okay. So just to kind of recap here while you guys are pulling up your verses. So we started off by saying that as you guys are starting off the school year, there's no reason to be afraid of really anything, except spiders. I hate spiders. I saw one on the door today right after Hannah walked through it. Freaked me out, and I sent her out the door, and then it was decent size. It was like the... Huh? No, on the door going outside. Like, it was between the main door and the screen door, and like she put her hand up there to open the screen door, and I was like, ah! And so then she went outside, and I grabbed a sandal and killed it. So.
I got bit in the neck while I was fishing.
By a spider?
Mm-hmm.
That Joe's, remember?
He was not there.
I've been bit.
You were not there.
Did you join in on the
Yes, I did.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Alright, back to the...
Yeah, sorry, spiders. Anyways. But yeah, we shouldn't be afraid of like, stuff that people typically get afraid of, as far as relationships and all that kind of stuff. And so we said that the key is that when you're afraid, don't just run away from it, but go to God. Even in your fear, even explaining to God, I'm terrified, go to God. And the big thing that we said was, you know, when you come into these circumstances, don't what? Close?
Sissy out.
Sissy out. There you go. Yeah. Yeah, freak out's pretty close, but...
Freak out because if you're a sissy.
Right.
Freak out, you're a sissy.
So yeah, don't sissy out, don't back away from it, just go into it. And acknowledge the fact that it's something scary, but that you've got God behind you to take care of you. So then last week, the real thing that we were pointing out was to remember that God's given you a spirit of power, not a spirit of fear. We don't have to be afraid of stuff because God specifically has told us He will be there for us. And we can see that God's there for His people time and time again through Scripture. And another thing that you guys brought up was being afraid of not being enough, or not being able to get the grades, or not being able to do well enough in sports. And so we just reminded you guys are loved. You're loved by Abby and I, by your parents, by the people at this church, but most importantly, you're loved by God. And that you guys are enough. When you give it everything that you have, you are enough. Okay? So tonight we're going to be going into the second part of this of fears of faith at school. So we'll just go ahead and start jumping into that. So, judging you for your faith. So what are some things that you might be afraid of, or that people might be afraid of, not necessarily you? If this is isn't something that bothers you. What are some things that people might be afraid of in this regard?
Getting asked questions.
Okay, getting asked questions.
Not knowing some of the answers to the questions.
Okay. That's not one I thought of ahead of time, but that's good.
There's sometimes like the kid asks me in school, it's not a question. Sometimes I don't know the answer.
Okay. Like let's go into this one a little bit more real quick, and maybe we can make this, like if you guys get mostly the same kind of questions, maybe we can make a series out of this to help you guys get past that fear even more. So what are some of the questions that you're either worried about getting or that you have gotten that you didn't know?
Like, why we believe in
Yeah.
Why at all?
and why they should.
Most of the time it comes up like when we're in science, we're talking about evolution, and someone lashes out about it. Someone else lashes out at them because they think it's not right and wrong.
Okay.
And then they get asked a bunch of questions and kind of panic a little bit.
Okay.
And you just
Okay.
kind of breathe, I guess.
Okay. What else? What other questions come up that?
Just one.
What's the biggest one? Okay.
Those are the hardest questions to answer.
Sure.
Because we don't know.
Yeah, I can't think of anything.
Okay. We're gonna let this one stay here for a little bit, and if you guys do think of another one while we're talking, just say, "I got another one," and we'll add it to the list. And if you think of one after class tonight, like I said, we want this to be a place where you guys can ask these kind of questions and get those answers so that you can figure it out. Okay. The biggest thing on this, and then we'll get back to addressing the fears, is that you're not always going to know the answers to every single question that somebody pops up. Okay. Somebody might ask you you might get some random person that asks you some really smart scholarly question about the text. Okay. And in that case, you're not going to know the answer. Okay. Unless you've spent as much time as Will has in the text or some other people at Oklahoma Christian where I got my degree. We actually had people in the Bible department that actually worked with the original Greek manuscripts and such, and that was really cool knowing those guys. But you're not, unless you guys choose to go down that path, you're not going to know those kind of scholarly answers, okay? And that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? The biggest thing to remember is that if somebody asks you a question and you're just kind of blanking, just be honest with them and say, you know what, I don't know that answer right now. Let me get back to you, okay?
Like you said that, and then flash out, and she was like, huh, and then I'm like, it's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, if they do, they do. But I mean, you're trying to offer a solution. I mean, you could sit there and you could throw the question back at them and say, okay, explain to me exactly how a black hole works. Explain to me the Rosenstein theory of black holes, okay? Talk to me about the general theory of relativity, okay?
And if they know that answer, I respect.
Yeah, genuine respect for somebody that legitimately knows that, okay? In 10th grade and legitimately knows that.
No.
Also, mad respect for Kobe for bringing in a large thing of chocolate milk. That's pretty cool.
I loved it from Sunday.
I saw that almost.
That's the thing I was like, I can say this week.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, Kobe, right now what we're doing is we're addressing the fear of being judged for your faith, and they said getting asked questions and not knowing the answers to. So, are there any questions that you can think of that you've had asked that you didn't know the answer to, or that you're afraid that somebody's going to ask that you don't know the answer to, or that you don't think you know the answer to?
No one's really asked me, but there's some questions I can't think of right now.
Okay.
But if I was in church, and it's brought up, but it's not fully talked through,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like, man, someone's asked me about that.
Okay. Yeah, and so what we're saying is that we're going to leave this here, and if you guys think of it, or if you think of it after class, just text it in. And since we got a lot of people out, and they happen to watch the live stream of this, they can do that as well. They can text that in. So yeah. So to get back to addressing the fear, what other fears do you have about being judged for your faith?
I guess you lose friends over it.
Okay. Okay.
Or just fighting in general
Okay.
with other people.
Okay, what else?
Just being picked on about it.
Okay. Okay, anything else? Okay, and that's fine. Okay, that's perfectly fine. You guys have a good list right here. Okay. Okay, so let's start with this part because this is pretty important in and of itself. Oh,
Another one, like,
for this?
yeah,
Okay.
not like for me, but like, I guess another one would be like, what has God ever done for you?
Okay.
Or, how could a loving God create a world?
Mm-hmm.
Is that questions for God?
No, it's like
It's
if
like-
people ask you, you don't
What
know the
people
answer.
ask you what it's for.
That's cool.
Like, not either you are scared of it, or like just any like anybody.
Okay. Okay, so now as far as the why at all, that should be one that when you guys really sit down and think about it, should be one that you should be able to answer. Because they're not asking that. This is a separate question from why they should believe. This is why do you believe? Okay? And so I think one thing that we can do when we get around to doing this as a full class, probably when we get done with the 6-week course that Will and Rossi are going to teach here in just a little bit, is we'll have a class where we actually sit down and go through this, and we'll take a moment to start off with by having you guys do those spiritual autobiographies like we did before, okay? Because those change over time, okay? And the reason that you believe changes over time. You know, like when Abby and I first got married, there was a level of love there and things that I loved about her then. But as the relationship has grown, there's more stuff that I love about her. So there's that. Why they should? I mean, why should they believe?
I guess you could tell him, even though there's such evil in this world, all the good things he does that we don't we take for granted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Address that with him.
Yeah. And there's that, and I think that could kind of go down here. Why they should believe, I think, has more to do with because of eternity.
Yeah.
And so then that's going to address the question. That's going to bring out the question of, well, why should I believe that there's a heaven and a hell? Why should I believe that there's God and all this? And the good thing about that is that if they keep asking you questions,
It means they're interested.
there's some kind of interest there. And even if you don't directly get them to believe and confess and be baptized, you're planting a seed. Okay? So let's bring this down because we want to continue addressing that when we come back to this. Why should I? Heaven and hell.
Oh, could I have another
Yeah.
thing? It's I've heard some people talk about it, just walking along for them talk about it in the hall. But they say it's like the question, how can you believe in something you haven't seen?
Yeah. Okay.
That's another question.
This is good.
Yeah, I was watching a movie the other day. That one you didn't want to watch. And you guys know how the Mormons, they usually go on, what is it?
Mission trips or missionary.
They spend 2 years right after they graduate. Usually they go on, missionary trips. It's required. I think of the men. I don't know if the women, but anyway. this was a true story. It's called Big Something. It was a basketball story, but there's this kid who went to college and he was going to be on the Olympic team for the U.S., but he decided he actually broke up with his girlfriend right before, so he went to be a missionary, and he dropped basketball, and it got to be where he got over there and he was having a hard time. He went to Australia, actually. They go door to door, basically, asking people, should I tell you a story? Well, anyway, it got to be the point where they weren't making any progress, but the thing was right on the Olympics time, and they found out that the Mormons, the missionaries that were there, were really good at basketball. And so the Australian team asked them to come and help them out learning how to play basketball, and it got to be where they used that to be on the same playing field, and they started getting respect from people who kept shutting doors in their face and throwing things at them, and but I don't remember. But it was you said something up there earlier that reminded me of that.
How do you believe in something you haven't seen?
Not that, or
Heaven, hell, judgment?
no.
Okay.
Anyway, good. You said something. It was a really good application. Actually, there's a story. They.
How about if you think of what the application is, we'll circle back to
Well,
it.
the application was that they were persecuted for their faith and they kept going, but getting on. You'd mentioned something about getting on their same field of how are you going to get them to listen to you, in a sense,
Mhm.
and just having something in common. And that's what happened in the movie.
It's like when he was talking about planting the seed.
Yes! Yes! See? He used basketball playing. Not that I'm saying that their stories are, I'm just saying, as a faith story.
Okay.
Anyway, I was going somewhere with it.
Okay.
Thank you. It's a good movie.
Anyhow. All right. So yeah, as far as why they should, because of eternity, and because there is a difference between heaven and hell, and holy and unholy, and all this, and so we'll get into that more later. As far as if somebody starts bringing up scientific evidence, did you guys believe because somebody found like bones of Jesus or bones of something else and said, here is all this scientific evidence? Is that what you guys believe? No. Why did you guys believe?
Faith.
There you go. Okay. If you guys sit down and actually watch, do you guys know who Bill Nye the Science Guy is?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Bill Nye the Science Guy and Ken Ham. Do you know who Ken Ham is?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, for those of you that don't know who Ken Ham is the guy that's behind the ARC experience in Kentucky and a whole bunch of other stuff. But they actually sat down and had a publicized debate on TV. And Ken Ham was supposed to be bringing like scientific arguments on why he believed what he did. And Bill Nye was bringing scientific arguments on why that was false or why, scientific method, all this stuff. And every single time that Ken Ham got pressed too much, he would just sit there and go, well, I have faith. Well, that's not a scientific argument, which is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with just saying, I have faith. But you don't want to sit there and try and argue a whole bunch of stuff scientifically and then just end up saying, well, I just have faith. Okay? So there are some, there is some scientific, things that you could bring up, but you're not going to win somebody through scientific evidence. You're going to win them by convincing them and by God changing their heart and them having faith. Okay? Yeah.
What's that dude's name? He wrote all kinds of books, and like they're really good books. No, he wrote a lot of good books, and then he wrote one that was like really controversial, and people started like, dang, watch his videos. That one dude.
I don't know.
No, that my dad always makes us watch.
Francis Chan.
No. There's another dude, and he
Okay.
does a whole video about all this, like the science behind it.
Yeah.
But he does all kinds of like it's all the science behind it, and it's really crazy.
Yeah. And it's not to say that there's no science behind what we believe, okay? The God of the universe created the world that we live in, and so obviously there is a wonderful science to the stuff that is there. But there's a whole bunch of stuff that we just don't have the capability of understanding. Or, I mean, especially within the time frame that most people are thinking of. We've learned a lot over thousands of years. But I mean, there's still stuff that baffles scientists like crazy. Okay? So we'll get more into like scientific evidence, but for now, just remember that the key is faith. Okay? So if somebody starts sitting there harassing you and say, well, where's the evidence? I don't need evidence. I've got faith. And then that should draw out other questions. Okay? So the rest of the stuff, like what has God done for you? Again, that's something that we'll be able to look more into when we do a spiritual autobiography. And there's nothing to stop you guys from going home and doing one of those tonight. Okay? You can wait for us to do the class, but you can absolutely go home and just try and write a one-page spiritual autobiography. Okay? Don't feel like you have to wait. How could God allow such evil in the world? And we've talked a little bit about that, but we'll dive more into that another time as well. So this is good. I like this. And again, if you keep thinking of more, just shout it out and we'll add it to the list. So, okay. So as far as responding to the fear, sorry. So as far as responding to it, one of the things that we have to remember is that when we put on Christ in baptism, this isn't just a thing of saying, okay, I get to go to heaven now. Okay? We've got to remember that this is the beginning of a change in our life, where we are working to become less like ourselves and more like Christ. And so in that sense, that's the only life worth pursuing at that point. And so as far as, what anybody else's concerns about you, it stinks, but this is the only life that matters. Okay? So let's go with Acts 4:18 through 20.
Then they called them in again and commanded them not to speak or teach at all in the name of Jesus. But Peter and John replied, which is right in God's eyes, to listen to you or to him, you be the judges. As for us, we cannot help speaking about what we have seen and heard.
Okay, so this is the first time that Peter and John are brought before the Jewish High Council, Sanhedrin, whatever it is. And I mean, notice what Peter says. He specifically says, you be the judge. Who should we listen to? God or you? Okay? That's the level of their conviction. They know what they need to say. They know what the good news is. It's not like they're just trying to irritate these guys. They know what the good news is. The good news is that Jesus died so that we can be freed from sin. And so these people want to tell them to stop, and they say, no way. This good news is too good to not be shared. And so who should we listen to? God or you? That's where they come from. Go ahead and go with Acts 5, verses 41 through 42.
The apostles left the Sanhedrin rejoicing because they had been counted worthy of suffering disgrace for the name day after day in the temple courts, and from house to house. They never stopped teaching and proclaiming the good news that Jesus is the Messiah.
Okay. So, they leave the first time. Sanhedrin doesn't do much except just saying, okay, just don't talk about this anymore. And then the Sanhedrin come to find out that they've been talking about it more. They pull them in. They're about ready to beat them. About ready to actually have them stoned. And then Paul's teacher actually stops them and says, no, wait, hang on. If this is from God, you can't stop it. Okay? So if this is from God, just leave it alone. Don't do anything to him. Let him go. They beat him anyways. I've always found that funny. But they leave rejoicing because they were counted worthy of suffering for the name of Christ. They knew what they were getting themselves into. Okay? So when it comes to this fear of being judged for your faith, it seems almost, I don't want it to seem calloused, but look at the example that was already set before us. That these people were willing to give up everything because they knew the better news. And they knew exactly what the cost of that news was. Not just to themselves or for themselves, but they knew the cost of what would happen if people didn't hear it. That for anybody who doesn't obey the gospel, they're going to die. It's not just, just fall in a grave and die. It's forever. And so this is the thing that they understood going into this and why they felt like this was so important for them to continue in. Let's go to Jeremiah 20, 7 through 13.
You deceived me, Lord, and I was deceived. You overpowered me and prevailed. I am ridiculed all day long. Everyone mocks me. Whenever I speak, I cry out, proclaiming violence and destruction. So the word of the Lord has brought me insult and reproach all day long. But if I say I will not mention his word or speak any more of his name, his word is in my heart like fire, a fire shut up in my bones. I am weary of holding it in. Indeed, I cannot. I hear many whispering, terror on every side. Denounce him. Let's denounce him. All my friends are waiting for me to slip, saying perhaps he will be deceived. Then we will prevail over him and take on our revenge. But the Lord is with me like a mighty warrior, so my persecutors will stumble and not prevail. They will fail and be thoroughly disgraced. Their dishonor will never be forgotten. Lord Almighty, you who examine the righteous and probe the heart and mind, let me see your vengeance on them. For to you I have committed my cause. Sing to the Lord, give praise to the Lord. He rescues the life of the needy from the hands of the wicked.
Okay. So, right before this part in particular, Jeremiah has been preaching against Judah, saying, everything's going to come to an end here because of all the sin in the city. And one of the high priests actually finds out about this, has him beaten, and then throws him in jail. So when Jeremiah actually gets out, he actually prophesies against the high priest too and says, you're going to die, and it's going to be bad. And it's following this that Jeremiah makes this statement, which is basically, he basically starts off by saying, God, this isn't what I wanted. Every single time I open my mouth, I get beaten for it. Every single time I try and tell these people what what you want to say, I get thrown in prison. This isn't right. And so he goes on to say, I would love to just shut up about all this. I would love to just say, forget it. Let him die. Let him burn. But I can't. Because every single time I try and hold it in, God's word just burns within me. I can't stand the thought of holding it in. And so this is where Jeremiah is coming from. And when you really look back, every single one, almost every single prophet that goes through Jerusalem suffers. Because they're specifically telling the people, you're not living right. And you all are called to be a messenger to the world of what's right and wrong. And something else to keep in mind too is that when you look in the Bible, every once in a while you find out about people that weren't believers that were oppressing God's people. But the vast majority of the time, it's people that are supposed to be God's people that are oppressing the ones that are trying to say what's right. And so as you guys commit to this lifestyle of following Christ, you're going to need to remember that at some point somebody might try and judge you because you're telling them what's the real truth. Okay? But be like Jeremiah. Look at his example. That no matter what happened, he would not allow this to just sit. He wouldn't allow himself to sit idly by. He couldn't stand the thought of it. Let's do Matthew 25. Oh, no. You guys didn't have that one. I was just going to bring that one up because that's a lot. Okay, Matthew 25, verses 14 through 30. That is the story of the parable of the talents. Okay? So, the master shows up. He gives one guy and he says, here's a talent. It's a gold coin. Here's a talent. Here's a talent. Comes back later and he comes to the first guy and the first guy says, I've gotten what? 10. Your one talent has brought back 10. Good job. Go over there. Take control of a whole bunch of stuff. Goes to the guy with 1. Next guy with 1. And that guy comes back and says, your talent has brought back what? 5. Good job. Go take care of a lot of stuff. Goes to the last guy. All right. What'd you give me? And he says, nothing. I've got the 1 talent I started with. Okay? And I bring this up because God, did the master respond differently to the person that brought in 10 talents versus the one that brought in 5? No. He doesn't sit there and look at the guy that brought in 5 and says, well, he got 10. How come you didn't get me 10? No, he just says, good job. Go back. The only reason he gets mad at the last guy is because the last guy didn't even try. And so that's the tie-in here. You might not win everybody over. You've got to try. When you go to the parable of the sower, does the sower sit there and look at the ground and go, ooh, I don't want to do that one. Oh, I'm going to go over here. No, he does what? Chucks it everywhere. He's just tossing the seed out. Okay? Are we the ones that are going to change people?
No.
Who does?
God.
Yeah. And so I think that part of this issue that we have when we go through all this is that we're so concerned about, are they going to believe me? Are they going to be changed by what I say? We don't have to worry about that. Our role is to plant seeds. Our role is to water it. And Paul specifically, it talks to a church about this, saying, I watered it, I planted the seed, Apollos watered it, but God makes it grow. Change is only going to come from God. And that's something that we really have to remember when we're addressing a fear of being judged for our faith. So, all right, peer pressure to do wrong things. Let's address the fear. What are we afraid of? Getting in trouble? What else? Disappointing people? People, God. Okay, what else? What others are going to say? Okay. If you do or don't do it, or both.
Fear of giving in.
Okay. Okay. Giving in. Anything else? Okay. This is a good list. Okay. Oh yeah, that's right. I was wondering where my notes were on this part, and then I realized I don't have notes on this part because I went home at lunch, and then I got my back was killing me so bad I ended up staying there, and I didn't get to come back and finish the notes on this, but that's okay. Okay, so fear of getting in trouble, and I think these two, the first one here and this one, are kind of tied in because you're not. Are you going to get in trouble you don't do something wrong? No. Not likely. So these two are kind of tied together. So why are we afraid of giving in? Or why are we afraid of getting in trouble for doing something wrong? I mean, I think we know why we're afraid of this part, because of the punishment that's associated with it. But why are we afraid of giving into it?
Because we know it's trouble.
Okay, we know it's wrong. Getting in trouble. Do you guys want to do the stuff that they're trying to pressure you into doing?
They're pressuring you now.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if somebody starts trying to say, "Hey, you want to go drinking tonight? Are you guys really interested in going and getting drunk?" Oh. If somebody says, "Hey, you want to go smoke some weed tonight? Are you guys really interested in going and getting high?" Oh. Okay? And so, this fear of giving in is going to tie back into that verse that we talked about. God did not give us a spirit of what? Spirit of timidity. But a spirit of power. Okay? He's not giving you a spirit of timidity. Don't act timid. Okay? He's giving you a spirit of power. Act like it. Alright? And so, if somebody starts coming up to you and you start feeling like you're afraid, this is simply a part of that transformation of one life to the next. Okay? Because the old you wants to be afraid of this. But if you're not really going to give into it, is there anything to be afraid of? No. So don't be afraid of that. Remember, make that switch from, oh no, to whatever, and move along. Alright? As far as disappointing people or disappointing God if you do these wrong things. Okay? I can't lie to you and say that some people won't get disappointed. Okay? And some people might even act really disappointed and angry that you guys do some of this. But people that are genuinely following God, yeah, they're going to say, well, that was a bad decision. But they're still going to love you. Okay? And as far as disappointing God goes, God doesn't want you to make choices that are wrong. But God loves you. I can't emphasize that enough. God loves you. Okay? And so there's obviously bad decisions are going to disappoint or are going to be something that shouldn't happen. But when they do, don't let that fear consume you. Remember to allow God's love to be the overriding thing that you feel, that you focus on and remember. And that's, again, part of that transformation. Okay? You're not going to make this sudden drastic switch overnight. And so, if you find yourself in a position where you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing and you regret it and you go, oh man, what did I do? That's part of the transformation. Just remember, okay, I got to work on this and make sure I don't do this again. And that I'm making steps to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And maybe it does. Again, it's a process. It's transformation. Keep working on it. What others will say if you don't do it, or if you do it. Oops. Oh, there's a laser on this. I forgot about that. if you don't do it, and people think poorly because you've not done this wrong thing, does their opinion really matter?
No.
Okay. Again, work on making that transition in your mind. Okay? It's something that pre-Christ is a legitimate concern. And after Christ, it should be something that starts to fade away. Because if somebody is trying to get you to do something that's going to take you away from God, that ain't worth it. That is simply not worth it. You know, Ecclesiastes, the teacher sits there and consistently tries to say, I try to seek pleasure out of all this other stuff. I try to seek it out of women. I try to seek it out of alcohol. I try to seek it out of money. I try to seek it out of fame, knowledge, all this other different stuff. And what does he end up saying about each and every single one of it?
Didn't work.
It's garbage. It was worthless. Nothing made me happy except following God. And so that's the thing that we need to stay focused on. Let's go ahead and go to the scriptures on this one. Judges 8, 1-3, and 22 through 27. Who's got that one? Right.
Then the men of Ephraim said to him, What is this that you have done to us, not to call us when you went to fight against Midian? And they accused him fiercely. And he said to them, What have I done now in comparison with you? Is not the gleaning of the grapes of Ephraim better than the grape harvest of
Abiathar.
God has given into your hands the princes of Midian, Oreb, and Zeb. What have I been able to do in comparison with you? Then their anger against him subsided when he said this.
Okay, go ahead and read 22 through 27.
Then the men of Israel said to Gideon, Rule over us, you and your son and your grandson also, for you have saved us from the hand of Midian. Gideon said to them, I will not rule over you, and my son will not rule over you. The Lord will rule over you. And Gideon said to them, Let me make a request of you. Every one of you give me earrings from his spoil. For they had golden earrings because they were Ishmaelites. And they answered, We will willingly give them. And they spread a cloak, and every man threw in it the earrings of his spoil. And the weight of the gold earrings that he requested was 1,700 shekels of gold. Besides the crescent ornaments and the pendants and the purple garments worn by the kings of Midian, and besides the collars that were around the neck of their camels. And Gideon made an ephod of it and put it in the city of Ophrah. And all Israel poured after it there, and it became a snare to Gideon and to his family.
Okay. So, we'll try and speed this up a little bit, but, I mean, Gideon just finishes a battle, and he's got this peer pressure coming at him from another tribe saying, you know, why didn't you invite us to the battle? And in reality, he did. And instead of addressing the fact that they didn't show up, he just does what?
Points out that they did better than he did.
Sissy!
They sissied out.
Sister?
Or he sissied out, I should say. He didn't have the courage to sit there and just call them out on their junk. Okay? And then afterwards, they all want to make him king, and he's smart enough to refuse to be king, but then he takes all this gold and he makes a what?
Statue.
Basically. I mean, he basically makes an idol. He knew what was right, and instead he does what?
The opposite.
Sissies out. Okay? Again, just trying to speed through a little bit. Genesis 39, 6 through 12. This is the story of Joseph when he's in Potiphar's house. Okay? He's given control over everything in the house, and then Potiphar's wife keeps shouting at him to what?
I'm second.
Yeah, she keeps saying, come to bed with me. And finally he walks in the house one day, and he sees that there's nobody else in the house, and all of a sudden there she is. She grabs him, and she says, come to bed with me, and he does what? Runs away. Yeah, I mean, he leaves his cloak, and he gets out of there. Okay? And so this is part of our response to fear, is If somebody's trying to pressure you into doing something wrong, just get away. All right. 2 Samuel 12:7-10. This is right after David has taken in Bathsheba. Okay, he's killed Uriah the Hittite. He's now taken Bathsheba for his own, and Nathan the prophet comes up to him, and he poses the scenario to which David accuses himself. And this is the part where Nathan comes in and says, "You are that man." Now, David is the king. David's a powerful king. I mean, was there a risk in Nathan approaching him? Yeah, I mean, what could David have had done at Nathan's rebuke?
Killed him.
Yeah. He could have just said, no, you're going to die. And in fact, a lot of the prophets following David do this. This is precisely why Jeremiah struggles so much. But instead, David responds the right way. But Nathan had the courage to stand up and do what he knew was right. Which is bringing us back to 2 Timothy 1:7. God doesn't give us a spirit of timidity. God doesn't give us a spirit of fear. Yeah, good job. God gives us a spirit of power. I can't pick you up right now, okay? Can you go sit down? God gives us a spirit of power directly to challenge the ways of this world. Okay? And so, as you're going through that transition from one life to the new life, remember that. When you feel like you're supposed to be afraid of all these different circumstances, remember, you don't have to be. When somebody comes up to you and tries to get you to do something that you know is wrong, remember that you don't have to be afraid of it because you know you don't want to do it in the first place. Okay? So, that is it. So this world's going to present, I think that's the one from last week. Yeah, that's the last one from last week. Still works. The world is going to present challenges to us, but we can trust in the God who's not just for us, but he's in us. You guys can continue to remember that you've got God with you to help you get through all this stuff. That's also from last week too. This week there is no youth activity, so go have fun, go get together as a group and do something. I don't care, but I don't particularly have anything scheduled for you. I'm still trying to figure out something for September 16th since we're not doing the Carlsbad rally now. The 16th is a Sunday, so you will be here. What we might do is there is a possibility that we may be working to clean some stuff up around the building. There's a lot of stuff that needs to get done, so we may work on that. But also has something fun for you guys to do too. So other than that, love you guys. You're awesome. Have a good week. Oh, don't forget about school lunches starting up next week. Yes. Ashlyn, is she gonna be able to make it too?
What's next week?
School lunches start back up.
I'm not sure.